I hope you'll all agree we've had an incredibly diverse set of talks and sessions today. And I think what we felt was that although there are lots of, if you like, similar ideas, similar themes, there has been some variance in how those ideas have been communicated. So we thought this might be a good way of a sort of catch-up and give you all the opportunity to clarify anything that you'd thought during the day or anything you wanted to further interrogate our speakers. So many thanks to Tony, Richard and Tim for agreeing to take part in this. What I do have is I have 2 questions, pre-written questions, so I'm going to ask those and then open the floor up, and that will be your chance to ask and talk about anything you like. So actually this one is in fact marked to Richard, but I think it might be quite good to get the response from everybody. And what it says is, if you see who you really, really are, why would you need to keep looking?
Why would I need to keep looking? Because I keep forgetting. Because it's fresh every moment. And I can only see it now. We can only see it now. And taking a fresh look together, as I believe we are now, we look again, here and now. So, yes.
Me? Oh, no, you don't need to remind me. There isn't anyone here, so there's no...
Thank you, Tony.
So I don't have to remember that there's no one here.
Check. I will consider my next move.
What was the question?
If you see who you really, really are, why would you need to keep looking?
So this is not seeing who you really are, it's seeing who you really, really are.
Double really.
Double really. Oh, I'm not sure I've seen who I really, really am. Why would you? I think, I'm guessing, I don't know who answered this, but I'm guessing that comes from a sense of, you know, when you see something, you've seen it and you're done. And that's the end of searching and da-da. And my own feeling is that what happens on the journey is the same that's been happening since you started the journey, which is you learn stuff and you move on. And when you know, there was a time when Tim couldn't walk. There was a time when he found it very difficult not to poo his pants. And I'm glad to say I can walk, and generally, by and large, for now, I don't have incontinent problems. That is established in me. It just happens. I don't pay it any attention. It's fine. The time may come when I need to, but it doesn't right now. And there's a general process by which consciousness moves and changes, and we grow and we mature. And it doesn't feel to me that that ever ends, because we're on an infinite journey. There's plenty to explore. There's always something more to see. But along the way, certain things start becoming obvious. And what's fascinated me on my little tiny journey has been that the more obvious what I really, really am has become, the oneness, the presence of being, whatever name you want to give it, the more obvious that becomes, the less I spend time looking at it because it's just there, and the more I'm interested in the separateness. That's where the separateness really becomes very, very interesting, and that's where it starts to sparkle. And I've become drawn back on that journey more and more into the human journey and wanting to engage with it now, because I have the sense of a deep safety that allows me to take the risk of doing this, of just doing whatever. I can let Tim off the leash to just be what he is and to play in the adventure, because unlike, I think, Tony, I think from what you were saying, I don't find it meaningless. I think it's absolutely packed with meaning. And we can enjoy it and participate in that. And my own hope from these meetings is not that we'll all walk away thinking, it doesn't matter, but that it really matters, and that by knowing the one, we can embody being a someone more, and that we can bring that huge power and creativity through this particular manifestation of it to the adventure of life, and actually engage with it and be part of that. And that matters to me. And I'm delighted to say that. It really matters to me, and I'm so pleased it does.
Can I add something? Yes. That for me, this experience of who I really am, this seeing I have no head here and I have yours instead, is a non-verbal experience. And I believe it's so obvious for us all. And then I try and express it and communicate about it in my own way. And obviously, your expression and in your view is just as valid as mine. And so we have a chance to exchange our experience here. What is it like to live from who we really, really are? It is not rocket science. My hand disappears into this. Now, when I say void, I'm using a word. You can use a different word or not use a word at all. Anything to add to that, Tony?
No.
Okay, Tony can answer this one, which is addressed to him. How do you know there is compassion?
Once the me is no more, or the illusion of the me is no more, there's nothing that knows anything. All of this communication that was here before is out of unknowing.
Can I add something about just a personal view about compassion? Is that to see that I have no face is to see that I am capacity for you. And you are in me. And I can, using language, I can say, you're not me. Now I discover also that you are me. And this is mind-blowing. And this is deeper than deep. And I'll never get used to it. And this is the foundation of love. And it's not necessarily an emotional love. It's just seeing. The truth is, whether I like it or not, I am built open for you. Face to no face. Fact. Like it or not. Yes. But if you go on being aware of this when you're with anyone, that their face is your own, so to speak, it's going to affect the way you are with them. Yes.
I love that. I love that. I also want to say, just because I'm sure everyone's aware because of what we've been talking about today, I also really love what Tony's been saying. I think that the thing that we can play out in this discussion is that for me it's a brilliant articulation of half the picture. And there is the other half, which is the opposite, and it also coexists with it. And because most of us can't see the half which Tony's pointing to brilliantly, it's a very valuable thing that it's happening. But as you know from what I presented earlier, I do feel the other half is equally valid and really important. So for me, this question brings up a line, which is somebody else's line, but I'll steal it because I love it. And it's from the Gospel of Philip, which is a Gnostic gospel written a very long time ago by somebody. And it's talking about this gnosis, this knowing of something beyond words, the place where there is no separateness and the I disappears. And it says, those who are free through gnosis become slaves because of love. And what I love about that is it captures my own experiences. The more that there's this inarticulate presence in which all the separateness dissolves, the more the other pole Tim, this individual expression of it, feels compelled by love to enter into the adventure of life and to play a role, whatever role he can, in it, and to encourage us collectively to do that.
Before this last break, I asked Tony about why do people use the word love, speaking of this nothingness. And you answered and spoke about unconditional love, which I really like. And on the break, I was thinking about it, and I was thinking that the unconditional makes a lot of sense to me if there's nothing, there's no characteristic to it, it's non-judgmental, it's just without condition. The word love, though, seems to be a condition for me. It seems to be like a positive, sweet, nice thing, you know? And so that the word love doesn't fit the way that I think of it. And I was wondering if any of you wanted to be able to say it in another way. Does that make sense?
I think it does make good sense. Tony, would you start?
Yes, as far as this sees, the experience of love for me is either a need to love or a need to be loved. And in some way or other, the feeling that is around that sense of what me thinks of as love is like soft and warm and welcoming and embracing. And that's the experience that me seems to have of what it thinks is love. When me drops away, there's another unconditional love which can't be described. Me can describe the love that it thinks it experiences because it thinks it knows that love. The love that I talk about can't be known.
I think I will just remind myself again of the truth, that this openness here is non-verbal. And there is no dividing line, I find, between this space here and what's in it. It's non-verbal, and when we use words, we might say space and what's in it. Those are two words. But when we've got the experience, which we do, we can relax with the words and play with them and use lots of different words. And call it love if you like, call it peace, call it space, call it nothing, full of everything, stillness in which the world flows. Find your own words, write poetry. You know, and this is the joy that there are as many ways of expressing this as there are beings, really, and it's so accessible and so obvious.
Love's a really difficult word. I use it a lot because I really like it, because it's got more feeling in it than compassion for me. It's got a bit of juice in it, feels more embodied. The thing which comes with this is, I think, as exactly as Tony says, it's something which is, I call it big love, deep love, unconditional love, limitless love. It has no boundaries. It's the thing which it's a love of being in all its forms. Just a love of being in all its forms. And then it comes down into something which is personal. You know, my love for my daughter isn't actually, I don't think, a bad thing or a graspy thing or a me thing. I think it's a lovely thing. She's my daughter, and it's different to my love for Ella, who's Paul's daughter, who I also love. But it's different because she's my daughter, and this is arising through Tim, and therefore there's a circle around me that goes out to those I have relationships and those I don't. But the love, the circle of love, can't be personal the whole way, but it can be this impersonal love the whole way. And they all seem beautiful and important to me. And they can all be their opposite. They can all be grasping and contaminated with all sorts of unpleasant things as well. but they don't have to be, and there's nothing inherently bad about them because they're personal. Actually, I think they're really beautiful. And I also think you draw attention to something really important, because it is very easy, when we say the word love, to think of it as something which is sweet, and that's a great side of love. It's beautiful. I love that. I love that love. But love is also something else. Love is willingly suffering. This is something which is very powerful in the non-dual Christian tradition, which you can see in the Gnostic tradition. A real understanding of the nature of love as something, when you love, you open yourself to suffer willingly. I talked about my mother, so I love my mother and I suffer with her because I love. If I didn't love, that wouldn't have that openness. So there's something fearless in it. There's something courageous in it too. Because when it comes down into the personal, that's what it becomes. If you just detach it and there is no personal, then it will just flee and you don't ever have to deal with any of that. But if you're courageous enough to bring it into the world, into your humanity and into the personal, then it's actually something which is very big. It embraces, the way I see it, is it embraces all the opposites. It's the thing which brings them all together.
So it's hard to try and put these things into words. What I thought I heard Tim say earlier today was giving expression to the idea that part of what's so exciting about this for him is that there's this sense of boundless one, and then at the same time there's also the possibility of bringing that into, or letting that inform the personal, and that's a richness for you, which I love hearing. And I also thought I heard Tony talk, and have heard Tony say in the past about that the me, the individual me, can't know liberation, that there is a fundamental paradox between the sense of a me and boundless energy, that the boundless energy, while contracted, can't know itself as boundless. And I had moments of experiencing that, but mostly I live
as a sense of a contracted self. And when I hear Tony say that the me wants nothing more than to disappear and nothing more than to survive, that resonates so much as well. And I just am experienced and I'm grappling with the tension between those perspectives, and they're conceptual perspectives, and my experience is mostly as an individual dude named Kyan, and sometimes that feels like that sense of my identity is like on a dimmer switch and it goes down, and then there's just this. And I guess I'm just acknowledging that, but also, I think people answer Tony's questions in their mind for him sometimes, and I've also heard Tony talk about making the prison a more pleasant place. And so what comes up for me also is, well, fuck it, why not make it a more pleasant place as long as I'm going to be in it and I can't do anything about it anyway. So I wanted just to say all of that to both of you, and if there's something that you want to say back, I'd love to hear it.
I'd love to respond to that. Yeah, the prison. Maybe we can turn it into a playground. What I'm attempting to articulate is that it is more interesting than either or. That non-duality is seeing both and both and is paradox. The example which I often use, I didn't use it today, is what's found in quantum physics, which gets misused awfully, and I'm just going to use a tiny bit, but you'll all be familiar with it, which is the whole experiment with light, which has led to the idea that, hang on, this is a wave if looked at one way, and a particle if looked at another way. And of course, that's impossible. It's one or the other. And yet, the great minds of the 20th century, people like Niels Bohr, looked at that situation and went, no, it's both at once, depending on how you look at it. It's either these discrete photons, or it's one wave. And we can't prejudice one over the other. And he called it complementarity. And it's a very, very, very profound insight because it applies to everything. And it applies to us. Look at it one way, and I agree with everything that Tony says. Look at it another way, and it's equally true that it's particles. And we can't prejudice one over the other. Once you see nirvana is samsara, how can samsara be less than nirvana? They're the same thing. They're both of equal value. So let's look at what this is. So what I feel from what you're saying is, look, these if you're in either or, there will be forever a contradiction. If we can grasp the paradox of both and, if we can think paralogically, not logically, about this, there's a new form of resolution that takes place, where you see you are already in both, just as you are. Right now, it's already both. Nothing has to die, nothing has to go, no me has to get in the way. It's both, and it's perfect. And when you see that, what happens is that rather than there being the separate self, the me, or whatever name you give it, whatever derogatory name it is given, the ego, the bad thing, there is no bad thing. There's nothing in the way. Rather, the two coexist. So that when people say, and I really, I don't like it. Something in me goes, oh, don't do that. When we attack the individuality, when we attack the me, it feels like I'm watching a little child being belittled or being laughed at. Because it's coming up and it's tender and it's vulnerable and it's hugely important. It's what this whole dream has been about, to develop that. And it's here. And when you say you've got to die, it's going to go no. And then when you go see, you're resisting. It's like, no, that's your wisdom speaking. It has taken you your whole life to develop that sense of being a person. You don't want to let that go. That's really valuable. You just want to see the other pole as well, where you see you're the whole thing. The image which comes to me, I've been playing with recently, and it's only an image, but it kind of helps me to try and say it, is like a hologram. You know, what fascinates me about holograms, you get a hologram, it projects this 3D image. But if you smash the hologram and take any tiny, tiny piece of it, it will contain the whole thing, but only from one perspective. So that you've got the one tiny fragment of hologram, and you can see the image of the glass, or whatever it is, but only from that one perspective, and when you look away, it's not there. And it feels like we're like that. These individual shards of something which is whole, in which we contain the whole thing, we are the whole thing, we're the whole ocean arising as one wave. And the arising of the individual is actually the culmination of the process, not the problem. And that's why we need to treat it tenderly and be careful with each other and nurture each other and listen to that voice that says, no, I don't want to dissolve, I want to flower. But I can only flower properly by realizing my roots go right into the grounds of oneness. And that's what will allow this to flower.
I'm going to say something as it goes past. So we all speak a different language, I think, and so I'll speak mine. We're aware of what we look like. I'm aware of what I look like. Richard, against a background, inside a room. True? My point of view is very different. The ceiling ends there. The wall ends there. The floor ends there. For me, there are only 3 walls, there are not 4. Do you know what I mean? And when I look at where you see the 4th wall, I don't find a wall. I am not in a room with 4 walls. I'm going to put it differently. The room is in me. I have a friend who's in prison in America. Wrote a great book, actually, Amber Shell, The Light That I Am. And he was searching, he was been in prison a long time, and came across meditation, eventually came to this, eventually decided he was going to point his finger He resisted for a while because he didn't want to look silly. It's a medium security prison. It's a tough place. Anyway, he looked and he saw that basically, as who he really is, he's not in prison. Now, as Amber Shell, he's in prison. He can't get out. I visited him. I came and I went. He couldn't. But as who he really is, he's not in prison. Prison is in him. Now, does that make a difference to his experience? Hugely. I suggest, from your own point of view, you are not in this room. The room is in you. As they say, hallelujah.
For me, it's very simple. The room, the walls are wholeness, rooming are wholeness, walling. And Tim's description, a very beautiful description for me, is a wonderful example of who's driving the Dreambus.
Hi. Firstly, I want to say thank you to all three of you because it's been a real pleasure to hear your different perspectives. And I'm actually not sure really whether it's... I think the gentleman that just spoke, probably me saying what I said, I'm not sure that it's even worth saying because you said it so well in terms of the question I have. And I think I'd only get the same response or I've got that answer already. So I think I just want to say thank you for sharing, is all I'll do.
Hi. Is the sort of appearance of you three not really being able to be completely in harmony, is that... does that sort of represent that there's not much point in sort of following any of you to your dying breath, because it's a very kind of unique experience, all of this, and you can only really be sure of that there's something going on, really. And it's very interesting sort of listening to all of you, but it is very weird the way that even in this minority of sort of non-duality, you get sort of three kind of experts or pretend, the appearance of sort of experts, and there's still sort of this weird tension in the air, like. So, I personally sort of give up. But then that's a strategy, isn't it? So I don't know. I suppose I'd just like to say thank you for sort of trying or whatever.
There's no strategy here, but don't follow me.
I really celebrate that we all have different voices and different perspectives. I would suggest we're all looking out of this indivisible nothingness that's full of something. Yes, fine. But can you see your head now? Sorry? Can you see your head? Yes, can you see anything else?
Well, I'm aware that the most I will get is an appearance of my face. I understand.
Yes. Yes, that's all. I'm pointing to a very special place. And you can respond as you like. It may mean something to you, it may not. And that's your individual response. And I'm singing my song and you sing your song, which is great. And
But we're all singing it seems we're all singing our own song.
Yes.
But that in itself is a kind of a contradiction, because if we
Well,
can see that we're all singing our own song, then it's the same. It must be some in some way the same song. So I'm just saying, let's just leave it, right? Because
Well, I think I'll do what I want, but I would suggest, you see, that in that direction it's different song. But find out who's singing the song, see. Well, that's your point of view. I can, and I am enjoying seeing who I am now, and it's not difficult. And if you say no to it, fine. But many, many friends say yes, and I celebrate with them.
Hi, thank you for coming tonight. It's been a wonderful day. I was wondering, on the point of spiritual practice, I mean, spiritual practices such as meditation, self-inquiry, surrender, devotion, yoga, following your passion, all these sort of things are thrown around as methods to help us work towards self-realization. Do you think they're beneficial? They can help us become enlightened, self-realized, or whatever we're trying to find?
Give it to Tony, it'll be a quick answer.
No.
Yes.
Yes and no.
None of you are being fair.
That's the perfect game. Yeah. It is really.
Thank you, all three of you, for today. It's been awesome. For each of you, how important is doubt or having the ability or capacity to be wrong in your viewpoints? How important is that for you?
As far as the open secret is concerned, there is no right or wrong, there is no truth. Everything that is expressed is out of unknowing.
I think that seeing who you really are is doubting everything that people are telling me about myself, accepting it from their point of view, but looking for myself. Each moment, what is it like right here where I am? Am I what I look like? And I can't rely on what I found a minute ago. I have to look again and take the facts as they are given. And so it's as if I'm doing it for the first time now. You see 3 faces here, I see 2. I could just see Tim's and just see Tony's, but there isn't one in the middle.
Sorry, I couldn't resist it. What was the question? Yes, doubt. Oh, God, I love doubt. Doubt is a wonderful thing. Doubt is what allows us to set ourselves free from being identified with the ideas and the stories we tell. And for me, the whole journey has been one of doubt. I love finding out I'm wrong. It's a great feeling because you suddenly see something new. I think, when I started off, I wanted to be right. Now it's like, yeah, right, being right's okay, but being wrong is such a wonderful thing. And I know what Tony means, but I think it's a bit of a cop-out. It is all coming from not knowing. And the place where I think that we would all really agree, and I know Tony and I would, because he said it so articulately right at the start, as I tried to do as best as I could, which is this is mystery. This is mystery, and what we're in and what we're experiencing is something which is before words, to which we apply words, because that's the way we can not only understand it, but actually it's how we can experience it through our concepts. And therefore, on the one hand, there's mystery, but the paralogical opposite is also present, which is story. And they're both sitting side by side, and when you're caught in story, that's where you lose doubt. So your biggest friend then is doubt, because it can set you free into mystery, where you don't know, you really don't know. But there will still be story, it won't have gone anywhere. Which is why, Tony told a story, there was words, he has a certain way, we can guess what he might say because he tells a coherent and interesting story. And Richard the same. And we're all doing that. And then the question becomes 2 things. One is, can we be in the mystery where we don't know? And then can we tell the best story we can? And then what I love about this, and I think maybe addresses your question, my friend, about, 3 different voices, is that to me the aspiration is, can we meet authentically in the not knowing? And then can we share the best story we've got with each other in that humility, which allows us then to learn from each other and develop better and more coherent ways of telling a story, which allows us to embrace the richness of life, which for me means being conscious of that deep mystery and then engaging with the story and how we understand it and what we can do with it and the infinite, things we can explore within this, both. And so the place where we agree is, who the fuck knows? And the place where we can play is, how about this? And that seems a really nice balance. And that's why I think it can be playful, why we can laugh, and why the tension can go, woo, and then dissolve into laughter, which is a great thing to do with it.
Okay, something slightly more serious, only relatively. When there's that recognition, recognition, non-duality recognition, is it then possible for the imaginary me to then pretend that there is a no me using non-duality, and then non-duality becomes like a kind of like a religion, even though there is still kind of a background of recognition, but then there is the non-duality is then used as a way to, like a limitation, to not look at the actuality of the unconsciousness and basically to go deeper into awareness in order to truly understand life as a whole and to understand the universe and its totality. And then for non-duality becomes like another limited reflection of the truth. Do you think that's possible? So the imagined self believes and pretends itself to be a not self, even though in recognition, obviously, there isn't one.
If you like.
How the mind wanders.
Sometimes you really want the microphone, and sometimes you don't.
I think what I'm hearing you trying to point to is it possible to inauthentically claim the non-existence of the separate self? Is that what you're saying? As a kind of cover, as a way of dealing with life, or as a way of, so that it's, and I think the answer, from what I see is, I think the answer is yes. I think we can do all sorts of things like that. We can play all sorts of games with ourselves and with each other. And that the journey to really be authentic is quite a journey. And I very much feel like I'm still on that. But I don't claim or want to arrive anywhere. I feel I would like to keep the journey going. And again, you said, my friend, don't follow anyone. And I feel that's absolutely right. I think we can share with each other, and that's the importance. And that's part of the new model, which I think is arising, which is that we can meet as equals in the mystery, and then we can share with each other from our experience, and that some people in this great play are mouths, and if you get drawn to be a mouth, then try and say it well. And if you're something else, then do that well. And whatever your role is, try and play it. And it's no better or worse than any other role, but you can play your own role better and worse, that's for sure. And so my feeling with all of that is, try and be authentic and keep changing. That's my thing, is like, I hope that if you came back in 10 years' time and we had the privilege to chat, or I was doing a presentation, that there would be some more to say, something new, because I would have lived another 10 years. And certainly if you'd come to hear me speak 10 years ago, what I'm saying now has moved on considerably, and that's a delight and arises from doubt. So I would very much hope that it would keep moving. And as I said, I very much hope that the non-dual community is moving. I mean, I feel it is. I feel it is moving into a certain thing, and I think it's now moving beyond it. And I think that's an exciting progression.
Any more questions?
I just want to respond a bit more, and I'm aware I have quite a different language from the one you use. So there you go. But a location. Where is myself? Where is my face? It's in the mirror, it's not here. And that locating of where myself is, there, it's peripheral, it's not central. I don't have to worry on and on about whether Richard is doing it right. He's there. And this is different from thinking he's here, locating it. And it's an incredibly simple but deep thing. See where your face is. It's not here for me. It's somewhere there, and it's in you. I'm free of it here. Fantastic.